Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Miedenberg. I am here with Dr. Weininger, and I'm so excited to present her book, which is called Heart Medicine: How to Stop Painful Patterns and Find Peace and Freedom at Last. And I am going to have you introduce yourself. I'm so excited to have you here. I want to hear about your book and what benefits, the audience will have upon reading your book.
All right. I'm Radhule Weininger, Dr. Radhule Weininger, and I'm a psychologist as well. Actually, I was a medical doctor in Germany first and then became a psychologist. And during medical school in Germany, I went to Sri Lanka. I got quite sick, ill, and I went to Sri Lanka and ended up in a Buddhist monastery in 1980. And so I have been practicing Buddhist meditation ever since. And now, over the years, it has grown together. Then in 1980, those camps were very far apart, the psychological and the spiritual. But now we can bring those two medicines together, which I find really wonderful. And so I have been integrating those two in my practice more and more. I live in Santa Barbara. I have three uh, young adult children, and a dog.
They're,
And
they're children too.
my children too. Now she's the only child, but
Oh, okay.
she loves, and she loves my children too. But well, and so I'm working during the day as a psychotherapist here in my office with my co-therapist here. And also as a meditation teacher, I founded a nonprofit and we have a meditation platform which is free, so anybody can join. And
Or is there a website or somewhere they could log on?
there's a website, Mindful Heart Programs with an S in the end, .org, or rodleyWeiningerPhD.com. My name with a PhD.com. And actually, the two websites link to each other.
Mhm.
And when people are really wanting to talk to me, it's rodley@gmail.com. So very easy. And since my childhood, I have been working with what I call now long-standing recurrent painful patterns. And actually, my mentor of 20 years, Jack Cornfield, encouraged me to write about it and to work about it and write a book about it. And so that's what I have done because I find they are really, how would I say, a drag. These
Oh,
long-standing recurrent painful patterns are difficult and painful. And so I've been thinking about how to find freedom from them.
so is it okay to explain what you mean by patterns? Because some people may not know exactly what that is.
Yes, it's something that is recurring. For me in my life, I had a rather difficult early childhood. My mother, who was a doctor in post-war Germany, had me out of wedlock and hid me for 2 years in an orphanage,
Mhm.
and then presented me to her family, who were not very excited about me coming in there. And so I have this long-standing recurrent pattern about rejection, about not being seen, about maybe being left out, not being really part of it. And so I have been, gosh, 20 years in therapy and been meditating now for 42 years. It's gotten a lot better, but those patterns still sometimes raise their gnarly head,
Mhm.
and I kind of frankly got tired of it. And I see it in my clients, and I find how important it is to recognize what's happening, to identify them, so it's not this free floating anxiety and feeling bad about oneself, but
Mhm.
you have a kind of like a diagnosis. This is what we're dealing with. And then we can understand them, that at their um, at their core is trauma usually,
Mhm.
and that kind of leads us to repeat and obsess about them.
Mhm.
And then that awareness is really important, and we know how important awareness is from psychology, from psychotherapy, making unconscious conscious, but also from meditation, the medicine of awareness, of mindfulness, or of resting in awareness. So
Mhm.
that's where the psychological and the spiritual or Buddhist practice come
Mhm.
together.
Mhm. So it sounds like that, once you become aware that there's this shift in behavior, that's what I'm hearing you say. And that in your book that you give a very prescriptive way of how, to accomplish that.
That's right. And prescriptive, yes, but I want to also let
Yes.
people be creative with those steps.
Mhm.
They don't have to always be in sequence.
Mhm.
But, it's good to start with recognizing that you have gotten lurked, to feel what it's like, to feel the body sensations, to feel the emotions that might be stronger than the situation would warrant, to start ruminating, maybe behaviors, acting outs, as we call it, that might be self destructive or harmful to others or make us just really anxious and depressed.
Mhm.
And to slowly work with that and to learn to tolerate these strong feelings and to find little mindful pauses that we can use during the day. I describe those not just mindfulness as a practice in the half hour in the morning, but also something we can use in the moment.
Mhm.
And what can we do when we get triggered? I call a whole emotional awareness process
Mhm.
where we can work, in therapy or by ourselves when we have gotten triggered. And,
Mhm.
forgiveness is important. And actually, service is important. By serving others, we feel less alone, we feel less doomed, we feel stronger, we feel empowered, and we feel connected. And then letting, as what I call the great mystery, and awareness, as I learned from some of my Tibetan Buddhist teachers,
Mhm.
not as something I can learn moment by moment, but also something, actually a change, a shift in consciousness, a broader perspective I can rest in. And then it's like not putting a spoonful of salt into a glass of water, which makes it very salty, but having a spoonful of salt in a lake, which
Mhm.
is not salty at all. So these are some ways I might suggest working with it.
Mhm.
And
I like that metaphor. Yeah, that's a wonderful metaphor.
that worked for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm, as you're speaking, I'm, just thinking, how easy it is to fall into that familiarity, right? Because it's like even cognitively, and neurologically, it's part of like our synapses, right? And our mapping, so we just like instantaneously fall into those habits, and those, ways of thinking and doing, right? So I think I'm hearing a lot of expansion and flexibility and openness.
Yeah, and it's right. Very often we have these neural pathways.
Yeah.
The more we repeat the same pattern, the more that's kind of the groove we
Mhm.
fall into. I think the Buddha called it like, you know, um, a track in the mud and a
Mhm.
ox cart, and
Yes.
it falls again into the same groove over and over again. And how hard it is to make a new groove, but
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah. And I think everyone could relate to what you're talking about. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a pattern of behavior that they'd like to change or reframe, or expand. So I think it's so applicable to every single person. I can't imagine nobody, could relate to this. So do you use a lot of, just in the book, do you use a lot of, case examples of people you work with? How is the book structured? Just so people
Yeah.
will.
So there are two parts to the book. The
Mhm,
first part of the book is the foundational chapters,
mhm,
where I really did some research about from psychology and from Eastern spirituality,
mhm,
Buddhist and Hindu spirituality. They call those patterns samskaras or shankaras, and Western psychology, they call them complexes.
mhm,
Eckhart Tolle calls them pain bodies. What is this thing, that's between an emotion and a behavior and a thought and a feeling and an event, sometimes events repeating themselves. And so that is important.
mhm.
And
I think we froze for a moment. Hello? Well, I'll talk for a moment while we get back. Um, so I think these patterns that are being described, could be harmful to some people, when it's repeated over and over again. Um, it looks like we lost um, the doctor, unfortunately. So I'm going, to just say that I highly endorse and encourage people, to buy and to read the book. Again, it's called Heart Medicine, and by Dr. Weininger. And you can see it right here. Okay, and we could all relate to patterns. And I think the patterns that I find that repeat itself quite often is people that we tend to interact in with our relationships. And I hear people saying to me all the time, I don't know why I always meet the same types of people, or the same types of people get attracted to me. And that could be, a partner, or it could be a friend in a friendship. So it is really worth understanding your patterns of behavior, because it really helps you cultivate a different type of life and a different way of functioning. So thank you so much for listening. And again, sorry that we lost, the author, but I hope you'll consider buying her book. Thank you.